Okay, hopefully we're back. We had to change a few things around here. As I was saying, lately with the Zimmerman problem that we've been having, you know, they made the man out to be a racist. And I'd like to go over the timeline a little bit. On February 26th of 2012, Zimmerman shoots and kills Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman claims self-defense, and after an investigation, the police agree and decide not to press charges. On March 8, 2012, the AP falsely describes Zimmerman as white. So as you can see, the news media jumped on this pretty much from February 26th all the way to March 8th. It took them that long to give us a bunch of BS. The story of the grieving parents of Trayvon Martin demanding Zimmerman be arrested first achieves national attention on March 8th when CBS This Morning runs a report. Later that same day, the Associated Press throws the first log on the racial fire by inaccurately describing Zimmerman as white. So you can see what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. The news media has got an agenda, and their agenda is to lie to you so we can pump up all of this racial tension in the country. So now we're going to continue because from March 8th to March 13th, NBC's Al Sharpton uses PMSNBC platform to stoke phony racial narrative. Sharpton devoted a portion of his program on PMSNBC, Politics Nation, to the Trayvon Martin case. He interviewed the Martin family attorney, Benjamin Crump, who reiterated the accusation that Zimmerman was white. Now, the Hispanic community ought to be up in arms about this, because very plainly the man is not white, he is Hispanic, just because his last name is Zimmerman. For crying out loud, if we had a guy out there, a black guy by the last name of Johnson, and he shot a Hispanic, would that be a race crime? They could turn around and say Johnson's a white guy, because what the heck, his name is Johnson. These people are insane. They're doing nothing but stoking racial hatred in this country, and I'm tired of it. I am really sick and tired of it. On March 13th, ABC News reporter claims Trayvon shot because he was black. No, he was shot because he was pounding the living heck out of Zimmerman, and Zimmerman had no other choice than to use self-defense. Just to wake people up to the fact, Stand Your Ground was not a part of this trial. It was a matter of self-defense, and he was found not guilty. So why in the heck are we using this racial garbage from the mainstream news media? But then it goes farther. On March 19th, CBS News falsely claims Zimmerman is white. A small detail that the Obama administration and the media apparently missed was that white versus black racial narrative they were perpetrating to invest so much into was missing one thing: a white person. Gee, somebody got it right. They're missing a white person. How about that? Jeez Louise. Then on March 22nd, Zimmerman described as white Hispanic. Must be a new race. I mean, when you fill out some of these forms and they say, you know, race, Hispanic, you know, Caucasian, black, Hispanic, Indian, Asian, but there's no white Hispanic on there. They want to push this racial narrative until the American people are so divided, and that's what these scumbags want. These scum-sucking bottom feeders want us at each other's throat for no other reason than their own personal gain. Let me tell you something. These cotton pickers here, they could not, if it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. It has no ground for them. You know, PMSNBC, their ratings went way up during the trial. And guess what? After the trial was over, they went right back down into the cesspool where they belonged because they have nothing to report but their racial hatred. Let me tell the black community out there something. You think CNN, MSNBC, and PMSNBC, all the rest of these, that they like you, that they're standing up for you, that they think, oh, yeah, let's get justice for Trayvon? Let me tell you something. They hate you because you're black. There's your racist, ladies and gentlemen, not the American people, but the mainstream or lamestream or the Ministry of Truth, whatever you want to call these scum-sucking bottom feeders, they're the racists. because they push a racist agenda. They constantly push a racist agenda. Anything happens, it's race. It's race. Oh my gosh, this guy here broke into the store. It's race, unless it's black on black crime. Black on black crime they can get away with. They don't care. They don't care if you're out there killing each other on the streets of Chicago or Los Angeles or New York or St. Louis or Atlanta. They don't care. Because it's not news. How many people, how many black families are like the Zimmerman family right now, grieving a loved one who was killed, but he was killed by another black? So guess what? You don't get the news coverage because they have to cover their own butts. The politicians have got to cover their own butts. They don't want that stuff getting out. But here, this is a racial hate crime. These are self-loathing white people in PMSNBC and the rest of them. They hate themselves because of the color of their skin. They feel that in some way they're responsible. Well, if they're responsible, put them in jail. I'll vote for that. Let's go a little bit farther on this timeline. Let's see here. March 22nd, NBC Al Sharpton goes to Florida. Though the police had investigated shooting and saw no reason to charge George Zimmerman in March of 2012, President Obama's re-election chances looked dim. He needed a crucial swing state of Florida to win another 4 years, and nothing brings out the Democratic vote like a good old racial bonfire. At the protest, Sharpton was flanked by Martin's parents. Trayvon could have been any one of our sons. Trayvon could have been one of us. He continued, "We're tired of going to jail for nothing and going home for and others going home for something. Zimmerman should have been arrested that night. You cannot defend yourself against a pack of Skittles and iced tea." Skittles and iced tea. The kid was 6'2", over 200 pounds. Zimmerman's like 5'7", and he was hammering his head on the concrete. I'll tell you what, Mr. Sharpton, let me bang your head on the concrete and see how much you like it. And I'll break your nose, because I'm a heck of a lot bigger than you are. Don't talk to us like we're stupid. Nobody's talking to you like you're stupid except your Democratic friends. Your liberal racists are talking to you like you're a bunch of stupid idiots. You treat the black community like they're a bunch of infants. They're not. Why don't you try something totally different? Why don't you give them the truth? Give them the truth and see how long you last there, Mr. Race Baiter. And that's exactly what you are, Al Sharpton, a race baiter, nothing more. Sharpton said that he would stay on the case. We cannot allow legal precedent to be established in this city that tells us it's legal for a man to kill us, tell any story he wants, and walks out with a murder weapon. Do you see what they do? They inflame people. Al Sharpton ought to go to jail. Him, the Black Panthers, Barack Obama, and I'm going to get into Barack Obama in a little bit anyhow, a little bit later on. March 24th, Reuters describes Zimmerman as white Hispanic. Here we go again. This time it's Reuters. They're all connected, ladies and gentlemen. They're like a bunch of belly button to keister hole. They just all walk in lockstep like a bunch of Nazis. March 27, 2012, NBC News edits 9/11 audio to make Zimmerman look racist. Now, here's where what went on. They took the 9/11 call, and Zimmerman said, "This guy looks like he's up to no good. He looks black." When the truth is that the unedited audio actually went like this. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just walking around, looking about. Okay, this is the dispatcher now. Okay, and this guy, is he black, white, or Hispanic? Zimmerman, he looks black. Big difference than what they originally... NBC is getting sued by Zimmerman for this kind of stuff. They set this guy up, and they're getting sued by Zimmerman. And they should be, and they should lose. And I'll tell you something, if I sat on that jury, I'll tell you, you're asking for $1 million? Oh, that's not a problem. I'll give you the $1 million. Oh, but pain and suffering because of these people? I'll give you $100 million. I'll give you $1 billion. Matter of fact, get rid of the name NBC News and put up there the Zimmerman News Network. I don't really care. I am tired of this racist crap that's coming from our news media. And they think we're a bunch of idiots. Oh, he's a white Hispanic, and he shot the guy for no reason whatsoever. March 28th, ABC News falsely claims Zimmerman wasn't injured the night of the shooting. Really? The guy's got a busted nose. The back of his head is bleeding. He had his head pounded on the concrete, but he wasn't injured at all. ABC News, you should be sued also. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd sue them all. I would sue every damn last one of them. This is the kind of crap that people are sitting down to at nighttime listening to and believing. Oh, I saw it on the news. What news? ABC, PMSNBC, CNN, the Communist News Network. I see it on all of these shows. Yeah, Zimmerman was a white racist. He shot him with a howitzer, man. No, he droned his ass. Bullshit. Everything we get from the mainstream media is bullshit. Let's continue. March 28th, the Boston Globe falsely describes Zimmerman as white. Like I said, if Zimmerman is white, then Johnson is white also. Doesn't matter that he's a 6'4" basketball player. It doesn't matter he's black as all can be. It doesn't matter. His name is Johnson, so we're going to call him white. Or what about Smith? Why didn't they call Ozzie Smith white? Oh, that's right, because he's not a white man. How about that? March 29, 2012, NBC's Chris, I get a tingle up my leg, Matthews, contradicts guest to claim Zimmerman not injured. By the next day, ABC false story about Zimmerman not being injured had already gone viral. However, some were already doing the job ABC apparently didn't want to do, enhancing the video. A guest on PMSNBC's Hardball told the show's host, Chris, I get a tingle up and down my leg, Matthews, that his enhancement did show bruises on the back of Zimmerman's head. PMSNBC even broadcast the enhancement, which clearly showed cuts and bruising. George Zimmerman says he shot Trayvon Martin after Trayvon broke his nose and repeatedly slammed the back of his head into the concrete sidewalk. But newly released video of Zimmerman arriving at the police station. We're looking at it there, appears to show no evidence of a broken nose or obvious wounds to the back of Zimmerman's head. Now, this is coming off of PMSNBC. I don't know why you would listen to Chris, I get a tingle up and down my leg, Matthews, anyhow. He's another scum-sucking bottom feeder who does nothing more than lie to the American people to keep his position at PMSNBC so he can push the narrative. Late March 2012, Zimmerman's black friend vilified by media. Even though Zimmerman is Hispanic and there is no evidence of racial motivation behind his actions, the media racial hysteria was, at this point, in full bloom. To try and tamp things down, Joe Oliver, a black reporter who had worked for the Communist News Network and the Orlando television station, started doing national media interviews rounds to speak on behalf of his friend, George Zimmerman. The counterattack in the media by Communist News Network, the New York Times, PMSNBC, and among others, was exceptionally vicious, personal, and effective. Why are these people allotted First Amendment protections? They're not news medias. They're fearmongers. They're racist baiters. They're race baiters. They're the whole nine yards. They don't look at the evidence. They don't tell you the truth. They lie out their teeth. Why? For ratings. They should lose their First Amendment protections. You don't want to release you. You're not a part of the news media. You know, they tell the alternative news media, oh, well, you're not part of the news media. Really? We give you more truth in 5 minutes than they give you in a month. But you're not part of the news media. You're just some guy running around with a little camera or talking on a little internet radio station or doing blog talk. We do the investigation. This guy did investigation. What do? They vilify him. Well, the Ministry of Truth, it's coming right at you, baby, and we're not going to stop. We're going to expose you for the liars that you are, for the racists that you are. April 1st, 2012, the New York Times maliciously edits Zimmerman's 911 call. Although NBC News maliciously edited Zimmerman's 911 call broadcast on the Today Show had already been loudly and publicly debunked, days later the New York Times did the same thing on its front page by rearranging the words of the call. Here's the 911 transcript. This guy looks like he's up to no good, or he's on drugs or something. It's raining, and he's just been walking around looking about. Okay, says the dispatcher. Is he white, black, or Hispanic? Zimmerman, he looks black. And here's what the Times reported. Hey, we have some break-ins in the neighborhood, Zimmerman said to start the conversation with the dispatcher. And there's a real suspicious guy. This guy seems to be up to no good, like he's on drugs or something, in a gray hoodie. Asked to describe him further, he said, he looks black. Just keep on keeping on, guys. Just keep doing it, mainstream media, lamestream media, Ministry of Truth, pushing the propaganda. We're going to shove it right up your chocolate whiz wine until your eyes pop out of your head. April 9th, PBS anchor Gwen Ifill describes Zimmerman as white. Desperate to keep the non-existent racial narrative alive during the broadcast, PBS NewsHour Gwen Ifill falsely stated Martin, who was black, was on his way to the convenience store in a mostly white gated community when George Zimmerman, who was white, shot and killed him after a disputed altercation. Isn't that nice? The Information Nation live on Orion Talk Radio, oriontalkradio.com, theinformationnation.com. April 11th, 2012. George Zimmerman is arrested and charged with second-degree murder. After the arrest, and as the trial date neared, the following year, NBC allowed Al Sharpton to turn his primetime PMS NBC show into a platform dedicated to convicting Zimmerman. CNN, the communist news network, would continue to refer to Zimmerman as a white Hispanic. And they also broadcast his Social Security number, his address, and his telephone number on TV. These are the kind of scum-sucking bottom feeders we're dealing with. All of this comes, this whole timeline thing comes from Breitbart, so I wanted to let you know that. You know, you listen to Barack Obama talking, how he wanted to take the country and bring it together. And this man has done nothing for 6 years, 5 years, but separate us with his racist statements. Let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Jackson, community organizer. Al Sharpton, community organizer. Barack Obama, community organizer. You see a picture here? Do you see a real picture here? Barack insane Obama hates white people just as much as Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson and PMS NBC and the Communist News Network and NBC and ABC. And let me tell you something, they're going to keep the narrative going because that's the only way they get news. If they can't find news, they'll fabricate it. They fabricated the fact that George Zimmerman was a white Hispanic. The Hispanic community ought to be up in arms about this. A white Hispanic? Really? Give me some more garbage from you people. You keep on watching this stuff. We keep on having the racial profiling and all the rest of this stuff, or as they say, racial profiling. Could it possibly be that black people do commit crimes just like white people do? Although black people commit more black-on-black crime than they do black-on-white crime. So here Zimmerman goes to trial, wins his case, comes acquitted, and they're still going after him. What does that tell you? Use a little critical thinking. What does it tell you? It tells you that they have no other thing to report on, nothing else that's going to be big news for them. So they're going to go after this guy until they've got every last drop of blood squeezed out of his dead, cold corpse. And Obama to say, well, if that was a white man, this might have been different. No, I don't think it would have been. I honestly don't think so. But you know what the narrative would have been then? Let's talk about the narrative. Let's take color out of Trayvon Martin, and we're going to make Trayvon Martin a white guy. Then it would have been angry Hispanic shoots white guy in a racial rage. And they still would have gotten their racial narrative out of it. Irregardless of what in the hell actually happened, they're not going to tell you the truth. They're going to lie to you for one thing and one thing only, and that's to get ratings, something that we can keep on day after day after day after day, and we can stoke up the people. Because if we do it properly, we could have riots to cover then. You want riots to cover? Go after that idiot in the White House. You'll have some riots to cover once the people find out the truth about that scum sucker. But no, we've got to continue. We'll keep this Zimmerman narrative going. How do we do that? So now they come out and they say, well, if this had been a white guy. Really, if it had been a white guy? I don't think so. I really don't think so. I think if a white guy had broken Zimmerman's nose and pounded his head on the concrete, the same thing would have happened. He'd have shot him. But it is so ridiculous the way things are brought down. Seeing as they want to talk about racism, let's talk about racism. Here's a little clip from Michael Savage. I played this the other day. I think it was on Live Truth Radio. And now I'm going to play it for you. Sit back, listen, and talk about a race crime that you very, very few people have heard about.
I want you to go onto michaelsavage.com, but I warn you before you download this story, I warn you, if you're a depressed person, don't do it. If you're an angry person who thinks he's going to go off like a rocket or go postal, don't read this story. Because it's going to get you so crazy that you're liable to commit some violence, and I don't want you to do it. Violence only begets more violence. Racially charged murder trials getting scant national press. It's on michaelsavage.com. Christian and Newsom, that's a white couple, young couple. They were out on a dinner date in Knoxville, Tennessee. Nice kids next door. Carjacked, kidnapped, tortured, raped, murdered, set on fire by a group of blacks. According to published news reports, the two were tortured at length while they were alive in each other's presence. They were then strangled and shot. I don't think I can even read this now. I don't know whether to cry or scream. Newsom's mutilated and burned remains were found along a railroad track the following day. 2 days later, Christian's battered and burned body was found in a trash bin. The suspects were quickly arrested and charged with carjacking, kidnapping, rape, premeditated murder, theft, and robbery. It's a gigantic story. Not covered. Wolf Blitzer, that empty piece of garbage. Wolf Blitzer, that thing that should never... I can get myself in real trouble right now if I actually told you what I think of these people. So I'll go on with the story. They're talking about the fact that the Associated Press wire stories on the killing were carried by Knoxville news outlets, CBS News and Fox News, but other major media wouldn't touch it at all. Search of the Nexus database found that the May 8th story on this website, aside from this one, no other major media outlets have reported the case. ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, and the New York Times would not return calls. They wouldn't cover it. However, conservative talk host Michael Savage said on his May 9 radio program that the Knoxville situation got me sick. So they called up a professor of journalism, don't you know, by the name of Robert Zelnick. And he's at Boston University. Probably dresses correctly, Mr. Zelnick. Oh, yeah, dresses British. Knows how to make a tie. Knows how to smile at a cocktail party with politicians, Mr. Zelnick. Moved himself up from the needle trades in 1-2 generations. The professor of journalism at Boston University, Mr. Zelnick, told Cybercast News Services that the Knoxville murders, as gruesome as they were, need a strong peg to reach a national audience. He said racism would certainly be one. Celebrity involvement would be another. But the coincidence of white victims and black perpetrators doesn't pass muster, though the coincidence of white perpetrators and black victims might, because of its relative infrequency. And so there it is. So Zelnick says the reason it hasn't been picked up is because it's not sexy. After all, she's just a white girl and he's a white boy, and they're just black guys who, well, they just did them, that's all. Not only they do them, they did them in a way that you wouldn't even see in Iraq. But that doesn't make it to the New York Times. Instead, they show someone with Down syndrome on the front page last week having a coat put on her back by her father. Showing you something about Down syndrome as the lead story, for example. Where are the two megaphone reverends, Sharpton and Jackson? I would think that raping, mutilating, torturing, and setting people afire is worse than a radio insult, and yet the good reverends are nowhere to be found. Isn't that interesting?
this story didn't make muster. They didn't broadcast this story because there wasn't enough. I guess there wasn't enough violence involved. But let's take a real good look. The young lad who they had tortured and murdered and sodomized and cut off his genitals and set him on fire and burned him to death. That doesn't warrant our liar and thief in the White House to talk about racial violence. The young lady, according to the coroner's office, she was forced to perform oral sex. She was also raped both vaginally and anally. And then they cut her into pieces. They found her in 5 separate trash bags. But this is nothing. This is no. Because it's a black on white crime. But there's no racism involved here. This is normal. This is normal. This goes on all the time. Why should we worry about that? And I agree with him. Where was the good Reverend Jackson and Allie Sharpton? Where were they? They were nowhere to be found. Because it doesn't make muster with them. Because they can't push their racial hatred to the black community to make the black community say that the white people are all demons. It doesn't meet their narrative. These 2 scum-sucking bottom feeders also ought to be arrested for no other reason than inciting riots, inflaming the people with the intent of creating riots. Arrest them, put them in jail. And the same thing with Barack Obama. I don't care about him. I could care less about him. So here we go. We have a white couple, never did anything to these guys. And they turn around and they grab him, rape him, sodomize him, cut off his genitals, set him on fire and burn him. And they cut her into little pieces too. Which do you think is more interesting to listen to? Where do you think more news is at? The white Hispanic Zimmerman or these pieces of garbage? Oh, but my gosh, I called these 4 black guys pieces of garbage. Gee, I must be a racist. Stuff it up your chocolate whiz-wang, Sharpton. And you too, Jackson. But let's go on a little farther. Marley Lyon did absolutely nothing to be murdered. As investigators shared video surveillance of the shooting death of Marley Lyon, they said his murder was an attempted robbery that turned to homicide. In a press conference Tuesday, Police Chief Greg Mullen said that the purpose of the meeting was to clear the air about any speculation about the case and to concentrate on solving the crime. There is no indication that this crime was anything other than a random, senseless act of violence. There is nothing to indicate that Marley was involved in any behavior which would be associated with this crime or known to his attackers. Chief Mullen said that while they know Lyon was at a house party earlier that night and apparently drinking, there was not that is not the focus as of now. He says they were doing everything they can in the police agency to solve the murder of the recent academic magnet graduate and bring the shooter to justice. Marley was 17 years old, beginning his life, that encountered a predator that lives by violence, hurting others and lives creating destruction in the community. Surveillance video was released of the scene showing Lyon's SUV parked in the lot of Famous Joe's Bar and Grill. It clearly portrays the gunman approaching the door with a gun at the window where Lyons was sleeping. The alarm of the vehicle was set off. The gunman briefly retreated. The gunman then returned and opened fire. The kid was asleep. The kid was on his way to college. Not anymore. Where's the outrage by our president? And this happened June 20th, 2012. Actually, it was posted June 19th, 2012. Where's the outrage by our president? What about the Reverend Jackson and Mr. Al Sharpton? Oh, but see, If it would have been white, it would be a totally different scenario. This is the kind of garbage that they're trying to turn you into believing. They want you to believe that, oh, yeah, well, this is purely racism. No, that was purely racism. That young couple that was brutally murdered, that was racism. But, we can get rid of the racism narrative. Let's move racism out of the way. And let's talk about what it really is. Zimmerman was a case of self-defense. He was getting pummeled. So he decided enough was enough. So he shot the guy that was beating the hell out of him. That's self-defense. This young couple that got brutally murdered, it's exactly what it was. Brutally murdered. To a way that nobody should end their life. Think of the horror that these two young people went through for however many hours or days until they were killed. Think of that. She had to watch while they sodomized and they cut off her boyfriend's genitals. She was watching, according to the article. And then they set him on fire. And where is our president? Not a word mentioned. Marley Lyon was sleeping in his car because he was too tired or too wasted, whatever it was, to drive home. So he was protecting the local community from him doing something stupid, and he was killed. For what reason? Probably because they wanted to break into his car and steal whatever he had, or possibly steal the vehicle. I don't know. But he was also murdered. 17 years old, same age as Trayvon Martin. Where is the Reverend Jackson? Where is Al Sharpton? Where was CNN, PMSNBC, the crazy news network, the communist news network? Where were these people? These violent crimes don't get reported upon. Why? Because they're not enough to incite the black community. They're playing the black community for a bunch of idiots. They think you're stupid. You're not stupid. You just haven't gotten the truth. It was said the truth will set you free. In this case, when you find out what the truth is, it's going to piss you off. And that's what they're scared of. So they're going to continue to force down the black community all of these things to incite them against white people. And this is something that George Orwell had talked about in 1984. And after the top of the hour break, we're going to get into Mr. George Orwell and 1984, which is becoming one of the fastest selling books on Amazon.com, and it was written a long time ago. People want to know. There was another self-defense case down in Florida, which was interesting the way Reuters put it, because Reuters made this thing sound extremely, what should I say? Like it was all the guy's fault. And I don't think it was. But then again, I don't know. According to Reuters, Marissa Alexander, let's see here. 3 days after Florida grand jury found George Zimmerman not guilty of shooting the death of Trayvon Martin, the Reverend Jackson visited Jacksonville to call the attention to another self-defense case that he called a travesty of justice. Jackson spent hours in jail visiting Marissa Alexander, 32, an African-American, let's call her what she is. She's a black American, who was sentenced to a mandatory 20 years in prison for firing a warning shot into the wall of her home in 2010 to end a violent argument with her abusive husband. In one case, Mr. Zimmerman kills a young man and walks away free to go kill again. That's Jackson's mentality. What about your son there, Jesse? And Marissa shot no one and hurt no one, and she gets 20 years in jail. Jackson said the contrast in the Zimmerman and Alexander cases exposes the injustice in the justice system. We see radical racial polarization in the judicial system. See, he's got to have somebody to blame. Otherwise, he's got nothing to say. But the case goes on, and they talk about, this is Reuters that talks about how she didn't do anything wrong, but she had an active restraining order against her husband, and she carried a concealed weapons permit, and she fired a shot into the wall. Well, that's Reuters. But HLN After Dark the real reason she's behind bars? Well, let's take a look here. According to them, she fired a shot that went over the top of his son's head in the kitchen. So she tried to push the stand your ground thing, but that was no defense. They threw that out. But the self-defense claim, Alexander's own actions were ultimately used against her in a self-defense claim. While she was out on bail awaiting trial on her aggravated assault charges, Alexander was arrested for domestic battery against Gray. Although her bail contract specifically prohibited any contact between her and Gray, Alexander went to her husband's house, where she wasn't living at the time, and after an altercation, he ultimately called police. Now, the interesting thing about this is, in the Reuters article, they were saying that her husband had been in jail. In this article here, they say she's the one that's been in jail. He's never been in jail. He's never been charged with anything. Warning shot out of fear or anger. Alexander stated she did not attempt to exit the house through any other door and said that her right to stay and stand her ground was her own defense. The problem with her defense was she chose to come back in the house. There's your stand your ground law. You can stand your ground, but once you leave and then you decide to come back in, it no longer applies. Alexander said then Gray threatened her. She felt her life was in danger, so she shot a warning shot in his direction with the kids just around the wall behind him. The warning shot is when you shoot into the air or into the ground. You don't shoot straight at somebody 6 feet off the ground. In an interview with HLN, Vinnie Politan, the shot was at eye level with the client right above, with my client, right above his 12-year-old. When you have a 12-year-old child who will testify to the jury that I thought I was fixing to die, I'm sorry, that is not a misdemeanor. When you shoot a gun that puts a 12-year-old child in fear for his life, that changes things, and I think it's prosecuted appropriately. According to Alexander's actions leading up to firing the gun, the top of her discussion to voluntary contact, Gray, while awaiting trial, the judge rejected the use of stand your ground. You see what's going on with the news media, ladies and gentlemen? Can't even trust Reuters. You can't trust any of them. You got to look at this stuff for yourself. Okay, we've returned. The second hour of the Information Nation. Excuse me. Live on Orion Talk Radio, OrionTalkRadio.com, TheInformationNation.com. We're going to get into George Orwell. I want you people to understand what's coming your way. George Orwell, if he had been in the Bible, he would have been considered a prophet. Because all you have to do is read his book and find out what's coming, or what was coming back in 1984 when he wrote this book. Unbelievable man. An unbelievable insight into the not American, but the human condition, the human condition. I can't say it any other way. He knew what type of evil it was out there, and he wrote it in the book. Now, I'm not saying that he was a prophet of God or anything else, and we should all bow down to George Orwell. No. But this man led a pretty rough life. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to play you a couple of clips. This first one comes from the Rutherford Institute. Give it a listen. You'll
There's a reason why George Orwell's book 1984 and his other writings are predominant in my new book, A Government of Wolves, The Emerging American Police State. It's because right now, at this point in history, believe it, many years after Orwell wrote his books and did his various commentaries, he is actually more relevant than he's ever been. Orwell understood what many Americans, caught up in their partisan flag-waving, are still struggling to come to terms with. That there's no such thing as a government organized for the good of the people. Even the best intentions among those in government inevitably give way to the desire to maintain power and control at all costs. In fact, the United States government now and all of its conglomerates, from the local police, the NSA, National Security Agency, CIA, Department of Homeland Security, has an amazing arsenal of things that impact us. And these are key pressure points that are affecting our freedoms. Spearheaded by the National Security Agency, which has shown itself to care little for constitutional limits or privacy, the security industrial complex, a marriage of government, military, and corporate interests aimed at keeping Americans under constant surveillance, has come to dominate our government and our lives. At 3 times the size of the CIA, constituting 1/3 of the intelligence budget, and with its own global spy network to boot, the NSA has a long history of spying on Americans, whether or not it has always had the authorization to do so. What many fail to recognize is that the government can't do this alone. They have to have an accomplice. So what do? There's been a huge fusion of super corporate interests with the government that makes money off of the government actually spying, invading our rights, and encroaching on our freedom. In search of terrorists hiding among us, the government has taken to monitoring all aspects of our life, from cell phone calls and emails to internet activity and credit card transactions. Much of this data is being fed through fusion centers across the country. These are state and regional intelligence centers that watch us and collect data on us. Orwell's famous quote, "Big Brother is watching you," that has come true. What happens to a people that are being constantly watched? Our homes invaded, many of us, 80,000 SWAT team raids across the country, and that's increasing rapidly, where black armed troopers are coming through people's doors without warrants. And the United States Supreme Court has condoned that. What's happened to us? Here's what I think. If we don't wake up soon and start dismantling this machine that we have built, we're going to be in deep trouble. Read Thomas Paine's Common Sense. In the first paragraph, he says, "We build the instruments from which we suffer. The age of privacy and freedom is coming to a close in America. If we don't wake up, the future looks ominous." To quote George Orwell, "If you want a picture of the future," he forewarned, "imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever."
There you go. He say black armed people? Oh my gosh, he's a racist. This is why they're pushing the narrative with George Zimmerman and some of the other stuff that you hear them pushing, because they don't want you to look into the NSA and what they're doing to you and how they're taking away your freedoms. They're taking away your freedoms, ladies and gentlemen, left and right. All of these congressional investigations, from Benghazi all the way through IRS, NSA, FBI, CIA, these are all invasions of your privacy. All of them, in one form or another. It was shown real well during the Boston bombing, when they put an entire town under martial law and they were kicking down doors and they were pulling people out of their homes. For what reason? To make you feel safe. I would have sooner they knocked on my door, I'd open my door, they could have had some good-looking chick stick her hand down my pants and fondle my fudgies and leave me alone, and I could say, "Oh, I feel so safe." But no. All of this is done to control the American people, to take the American people's thought process off of what's really going on, so they can focus on George Zimmerman, so they can have riots in the streets, and the news media can swing their cameras out there, and their ratings will go up. And in the meantime, they're watching everything you do. A couple of weeks ago, I did a thing on the RFID chip and tracking. And that's going to come. It's coming. It's here, really. They just haven't implemented all parts of it yet. But they're going to put it in your driver's license, put it in your passport, and eventually they're going to try to stick it in your skin. And then as you walk down the street, they'll be able to say, "Hey, where's that guy going?" Type it in. Where's so-and-so? type in his RFID number. Oh, there he is. He's walking down the street. Total surveillance. A gulag, a prison, without a real fence, an electronic fence. That's what these people are into. They're going to watch you and watch you and watch you, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it if you don't stop it now. You've got to stop these people from doing what they're doing. They're taking away your freedoms. If you don't care, hey, more power to you. Go ahead, be part of the slave state. Go to a FEMA center. Go to a FEMA camp, whatever. Let them kill you. Doesn't matter to me. You know, doesn't affect me, man. Yeah, right. But it does affect you. It affects you. It affects your children, your grandchildren, your parents, your grandparents. It affects everybody because that's what they want. They want that total control. Stalin, Lenin would have loved it today. We can watch everybody and we don't have to build a wall. There was a movie a number of years ago with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I believe it was with Arnold, where they put a chip in people's heads. And if you cross a certain point, your head exploded. See, you don't need a regular fence. You don't have to have a guy climb the fence and go over the fence and have guards at every, 50 feet or so shooting at him. No, you just stick this chip in his head and let it explode. You just put up an electronic fence. It's coming. But people don't realize it because people say, my government wouldn't do that to me. They're good people. No, they're not. They're assholes. And it's plain and simple. Right down in street vernacular, they're assholes. They will screw you in a heartbeat, and guess what? You'll smile while they're doing it to you. Because of the fact that you don't know what they really want to do. They're going to sell it to you as safety. Don't you want to be safe? Don't you want your children to be safe? Remember the narrative after the Newtown school shootings? And they came out and they said, well, we got to find a way to keep the children safe. And when the NRA came up and said, put police in there or arm the teachers, and they went, oh, my God, you can't do that. Teachers with guns. Well, you're letting teachers teach your children, rearrange their gray matter so they can be taught, indoctrinated. Let's call it what it is, indoctrination. They don't tell the truth about anything anymore. They just feed you this line. And now they've gotten the okay for propaganda. Yeah, I bet you, but I wonder how many of you people actually saw this article. And as soon as I find it, I will tell you about it. But they actually, here it is, U.S. repeals propaganda ban, spreads government-made news to Americans. For decades, so-called anti-propaganda law prevented the United States government's mammoth broadcasting arm from delivering programming to American audiences. But on July 2nd, that came silently to an end with the implementation of a new reform passed in January. The result, an unleashing of thousands of hours per week of government-funded radio and TV programs for domestic U.S. consumption in a reform initially criticized as green light for U.S. domestic propaganda efforts. So what just happened? Until this month, the vast ocean of U.S. programming produced by the Broadcasting Board of Governors, such as Voice America, Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, and the Middle East broadcasting networks, could only be viewed or listened to at broadcast quality in foreign countries. The programming varies in tone and quality, but its breadth is vast. It's viewed in more than 100 countries in 61 languages. The topics include human rights abuses in Iran, self-immolation in Tibet, human trafficking across Asia, and on-the-ground reporting in Egypt and Iraq. The restrictions of these broadcasts was due to the Smith-Mundt Act, a long-standing piece of legislation that had been amended numerous times over the years, perhaps most consequently by Arkansas Senator J. William Fulbright in the 70s. In the 70s, Fulbright was no friend of VOA and Radio Free Europe and moved to restrict them from domestic distribution, saying they should be given the opportunity to take their rightful place in the graveyard of Cold War relics. Fulbright's amendment to the Smith-Munt was bolstered in 1985 by Nebraska Senator Edward Zirinsky, who argued that such propaganda should be kept out of America as to distinguish the U.S. from the Soviet Union, where domestic propaganda is a principal government activity. Well, that ban has been lifted. So now who are you going to trust? You got CNN. Oh, that's right. They give you government propaganda, too. Well, PMSNB, no, they give you government propaganda, too. What about ABC and no, they give you government propaganda, too. And now they're going to get paid to give you even more government propaganda. You see where all of this is leading? The ministry of truth, ladies and gentlemen. Orwell, the ministry of truth. Where all your truth will be censored by the government, and they will give it to you. They will feed it to you, first with a spoon and then with a shovel. And you will have nowhere to go. And you will have nothing to do except listen to their garbage. Why do you think they want control of the internet? So they can shut radio stations like Orion Talk Radio down. Because they don't want us telling you what's going on. They want you to only be told what they want you to hear. So that way you'll fall into their little box. You will become what they call a citizen. There was that movie a while back, I can't remember the name, where they went out and fought the bugs. And that was everybody's main goal, was to become a citizen. If you didn't fight for your country, you were not a citizen. Propaganda. Pure propaganda. And that's what they're going to push on the American people. More propaganda. And it's so easy. Do you know that you retain more than... You can watch a movie and you will retain the visual effect more than you will retain what's being said. You'll watch a movie 2 or 3 or 4 times before you go, gee, I didn't remember hearing that the last time. That's because visually you are a visual type of person. You'll remember more of what you see than what you hear. Unfortunately, all you can do is listen here. But they know this. These people have been studying the human psyche for years. And they are going to feed you so much crap, you're going to think you're a mushroom. Why? Because a mushroom is fed BS and kept in the dark. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to feed you so much, you're not even going to be able to handle it all. You're just going to sit back and go, oh my God, where's Dancing with the Stars? Or is there a football game or a baseball game on? I can't watch any more of this stuff. And that's where they want you. They want you sitting in front of your TV. Get up in the morning, go to work, come home from work, do your little thing around the house, sit down, have dinner, throw the kids in bed, sit down and watch TV, vegetate. They want you in a vegetative state. So then they can go and do whatever they want to do. Because you see, they're kings. They're emperors. They're dictators. They're whatever you want to call them. But they are no longer your representatives. They don't represent you. They represent themselves and the big corporate interests that are involved with them. They don't want you to know anything. They just want you to be obedient. Be an obedient child and do what you're told. We'll give you a little bit of money so you don't die because we need you to go to work. If that doesn't work, we'll let you die and we'll bring somebody in from across the border or across the country, legally or illegally. It doesn't matter. We will bring people across to fill your positions. And then what are you going to do? You can just sit back and die. They don't care. You think they care about Trayvon Martin? They could care less about him. They get to push your narrative. of racism. Unfortunately, when you see the riots going on out there, you see dumb blacks and dumb whites, and yes, I'm saying dumb whites, who think they're doing something wonderful. We want justice for Trayvon. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get it, because justice for Trayvon would be taking somebody like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. And what about the Black Panthers who stood out in front of the polling place with their billy clubs intimidating voters and putting them in jail? You're not going to get justice for Trayvon. Forget it. It's not happening. All you're going to end up doing in the worst case scenario, some lunatic is going to go out and kill George Zimmerman. And that lunatic, you're going to call him a hero, and the justice system is going to put him behind jail for murder. But you'll have your way, won't you? Because you will not only have destroyed a life, you will have taken a life. Your racist acts don't get us anywhere. You're falling right into their scenario. You're doing exactly what the government, what the man wants you to do. And that's be stupid. They want you to be stupid and go out there and protest. They want you to be stupid and go out there and break windows and burn down buildings. They want you to be stupid. Plain dumb as a rock. And I have to apologize to rocks because I'm insulting them. But that's where they want you kept. They want you kept in a belief system that the white man hates me. They want the whites to go, oh, the black man, he's nothing but trouble. He's nothing but, they're always constantly robbing and stealing and beating and shooting people. A black man, he's got a problem. Well, the Hispanic man is sneaking across the border. You know, they're all illegal immigrants. That's where they want you. They want you fighting amongst yourself. They want you fighting amongst yourselves. Orwell, if you have not seen the movie 1984, if you haven't got time to read the book, at least get the movie and sit down for an hour and a half or 2 hours and watch the movie and absorb it. I would recommend you buy the book. The book will blow you away. Especially if you read the book 1984 in the context of 2013, and you can see exactly where we're going. Orwell was not an idiot. Orwell came out of a communist system. We'll play a clip after the bottom of the hour break, and I think you'll get the general idea on that. Orwell could see what was coming. He could see that we were going to get screwed. And in his book, he warns us of it. I would recommend buying the book or seeing the movie, preferably both. I've read the book and I've seen the movie. And it's unbelievable what you will find out and how it, when I read it was a number of years ago. But it'll blow your mind as to how relevant that book is to today. And you think about it, 1984. That was 29 years ago that he wrote that book. And it relates to today, to the electronic surveillance, to the Ministry of Truth, at what we call the news media. Now they're going to allow the United States to broadcast their propaganda to us. You ever wonder why the rest of the world hates us? Probably they've been listening to Air America or whatever the heck they call themselves. Voice of America. Well, we're at the bottom of the hour break. Well, we have returned for the final segment of the show. Hey, how many of you had the radio on this afternoon, and we had a brand new show up, Charlie in the Box. And he's from Fresno, We Are Change. Great guy. Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's 2 to 4 Central. And noon to 2 on the West Coast. I don't know, something like that. But anyhow, Charlie in the Box on Sundays. Be sure you tune him in. I listened to him today. Very interesting show from this young man. I think you'll find it fascinating. Charlie in the Box, Sundays, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, right here, live on Orion Talk Radio. And I'm Ken, and this is the Information Nation, live on Orion Talk Radio, oriontalkradio.com, theinformationnation.com. I said I would have another clip from about George Orwell. And this is from Abby over at RT. Listen to what Abby has to say about George Orwell on the Big Brother watch.
There are very few literary masterpieces that can transcend generations. There are even fewer that serve as a blueprint for the future. One of those books is 1984, one of the most prolific novels of our time. The author was born Eric Arthur Blair, but is probably most known by his pen name, George Orwell. And this week would have been his 110th birthday. George Orwell was one of the greatest visionaries of the 20th century, who identified himself as a democratic socialist. Under the Soviet Union, he was forced to flee under communism's suppression of socialist dissidents. In 1945, he wrote Animal Farm, a novel anthropomorphizing an animal kingdom meant to serve as a metaphor for Stalin's betrayal of the Russian Revolution. Soon after, Orwell wrote his most famous book of all time, 1984, which portrayed a terrifying future of a total surveillance and police state. Tragically, just 1 year after it published in 1947, Orwell died of tuberculosis at the unforgivably young age of 46. However, his work lived on, and his staunch opposition to injustice and authoritarianism led him to produce one of the most genius narratives ever written. Sadly, Orwell's dystopic future and vision in 1984 seems to ring more true every day in this technological age. Let me just say that if you have not read this book, you must, not just because it's a work of art from front to back, but because it is so eerily realistic. In fact, it was even made into a film in 1984. Take a look at the trailer.
There are thought criminals who maintain resistance is not real. Believe me, Winston, it's very real. Big brother from the age of the thought police.
So many of the ideas and concepts in this book are applicable to the way our society has evolved today. In fact, since the explosive revelations about the NSA spying on American citizens, sales of 1984 have skyrocketed. So, what is it about this story that resonates with so many? What kind of future does it depict? Well, imagine a world under complete totalitarianism. It's a world of perpetual war, surveillance, and mind control, governed by a singular ideology. All independent thoughts and individualism apart from this reigning philosophy is considered to be a thought crime. It doesn't matter whether or not you vocalize your dissent. The mere act of thinking it is enough. No need to write it down or even say it out loud, because the second it crosses your mind, it's only a matter of time before the thought police come after you. And once they do, you'll simply disappear, with every record of your existence wiped out and vaporized. At the helm of this state oppression is an ambiguous entity called Big Brother, and every day it requires a ritualistic cult worship to the state. Orwell describes it as a hideous ecstasy of fear and vindictiveness, a desire to kill, to torture, to smash faces in with a sledgehammer, seemed to flow through the whole group of people like an electric current. But aside from this tyrannical adulation of Big Brother, there's also a calculated manipulation of language designed for one reason: mind control. People are conditioned through repetition and propaganda, and all must abide by these three slogans. War is peace, freedom is strength, and ignorance is slavery. These terms are contradictory on purpose, which Orwell refers to as doublethink, defined as, quote, the act of simultaneously accepting two mutually contradictory beliefs as correct. This paradox is also applied to the purpose of government ministries inside the state. Similarly to the Nazi propaganda ministry being called the Ministry of Public Enlightenment, In the book, the Ministry of the Truth controls all information. This is where historical revisionism takes place by rewriting articles, modifying photographs, all in agreement to the party line, because everything the party says must be true. Orwell refers to it as reality control. The majority of people living under the system are weak-minded, incapable of understanding anything more than the party's worldview. This willful ignorance is instrumental in the state's control over the peons. Then there's the perpetual war to fight an unseen enemy. In some cases, the government bombing itself to keep the masses living in fear. Orwell describes the concept, quote, "The object of waging a war is always to be in a better position in which to wage another war." But constant war is also to ensure the destruction of humanity's potential. As Orwell explains, quote, "The essential act of war is destruction, not necessarily of human lives, but of the products of human labor. War is a way of shattering to pieces materials which might otherwise be used to make the masses too comfortable and hence, in the long run, too intelligent." Guys, look around. For as long as I can remember, this country has been at war. Perpetual war against an invisible enemy. There are nationalistic rituals held to celebrate an authoritarian government, one that you can't question without being labeled anti-American or a traitor. The masses have a blind trust in authority and relinquish their privacy for so-called security. History is revised to favor the winners and taught to eager minds, shaping them into modern-day proles. We're told that dropping bombs is the path to peace, and occupation is the path to liberation. But this nightmarish prophecy was never intended to be an instruction manual, and it's up to you, me, and the freedom of our minds to prevent it.
Democrats, Republicans, independents, believe everything you want to believe. Listen to the Ministry of Truth, and that way you won't be labeled a terrorist, anti-American, racist, or whatever other label they want to throw on you. And yes, the thought police are here, so don't worry about it. I mean, you look at what they've done to the veterans. Anybody who's a veteran is now a terrorist. Me, you're a veteran, you're a terrorist. That's the way they want to do it. And she's absolutely right. This country has been in a state of perpetual war forever. I mean, when you think of the wars, just line them up, ladies and gentlemen. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all the rest of the stuff. The Falkland Islands, that was Britain. But Reagan got us in the one. Then with Gaddafi, and now with Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, Syria. I mean, it's just one war after another, after another, after another, and people are getting used to it. And then you go to the airports and they fondle your fudgies and they play with you and they sexually molest your wife and your children. And you go, well, I want to be safe. They have fed this paradigm to you day in and day out until you believe it. It's Hitler used to say, tell a lie long enough and it becomes the truth. And that's what they've done to you. They are slowly but surely tightening the noose around your neck so they can either cave in your head or take everything they've got until you're an obedient serf. You're going to sit back one day and wonder what happened to the freedoms that I used to have. This is not the America that I grew up in, and it's not the America that your kids are going to grow in. You know, it's changing rapidly. And if you think that anything is going to come out of this bunch of crap that's going on in Washington, D.C., with all of these investigations, think again. Nobody's going to jail. Nobody's going to lose their job. They're just going to turn around and play their silly little game to make you feel safe. It's nothing more than mind control. They want you to feel safe. They want you to feel that they are doing something, and that's why you should reelect them to their $174,000 a year job with all its perks. You don't seem to understand. This is being done on purpose. It's deliberate. It's deliberate to keep you in the dark. They don't want you knowing what's going on. If you think that, you're crazy. The Democratic Party is going to feed you one line of crap. The Republican Party is going to feed you another line of crap. In the meantime, behind closed doors, those two parties are getting together and going, okay, what's the narrative going to be? They know what's going on. It's all about control. That's all they want to do is control the people. There have been other countries that have fought wars over this. Think about Libya. Just think about Libya for a second. What was the reason that we went into Libya and created a no-fly zone where tanks and buildings flew? There was no reason for us to get involved in that, but we got involved in it. Why? Because they gave you this narrative that he was this awful dictator. But yet, through YouTube and other things on the internet, you come to find out that he wasn't the dictator that they made him out to be. That's the problem. Obama with his Muslim Brotherhood and how he is helping them every which way that he can. He's sending them billions of dollars. And what are we doing? We're sitting back and letting him do it. We don't have the money. He's letting Detroit go down the tubes so he can fund his Muslim Brotherhood. And what are we going to do about it? Are we going to do anything about it? No, we're not going to do anything about it. Here, listen to this. It's 3 minutes and 29 seconds long. Give you an idea of exactly what in the heck this guy is doing to this country, and you are letting him get away with the whole darn thing. Here we go.
According to Arabic news channel TV14 and reported by Egyptian Daily News, Obama's secret relationship with recently deposed Muslim Brotherhood President Mohammed Morsi goes far deeper than merely support as a democratically elected president. Per TV14, Obama conducted secret negotiations with Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood outside of normal diplomatic channels. According to sources cited by TV14, Obama secretly transferred $8 billion to the Muslim Brotherhood, not the Egyptian government, as payment to guarantee that a large portion of the Sinai Peninsula be turned over to the terrorist organization Hamas, an avowed enemy of both the United States and Israel. The secret agreement was signed by deposed Egyptian President Mohammed Morsi and his second-in-command. Who on the U.S. side signed this agreement and where Barack Obama got the $8 billion is not clear. When Mohammed Morsi was deposed and arrested by the Egyptian military, evidence of the secret agreement was disclosed and seized. Further, per the news segment, which has been uploaded to YouTube and has since gone viral, secret negotiations between Obama and the Egyptian military, specifically Colonel Abdullah al-Sisi, head of the armed forces, were ongoing and intended to ensure that the agreement remained hidden. However, a source within the Egyptian military leaked Obama's nefarious activities to TV14 and the world. If Obama's secret agreement with the Muslim Brotherhood is proven correct, it may spell the end of the Obama administration once and for all. Obama may have illegally siphoned off funds from the U.S. Treasury and committed treason by attempting to turn over lands to Hamas, a group that is not only an enemy of the United States, but has vowed to destroy every Jew on the face of the earth. If Obama's nefarious plan had been realized, Hamas's control of the Sinai Peninsula could have left Israel in an indefensible position and would have led to a second Holocaust. If proven true, this would go far beyond the Constitution's requirement of high crimes and misdemeanors as the basis for impeachment. It would mean treason, possible life imprisonment, or even the death penalty for Barack Hussein Obama.
There's your president. You see what's going on? Like they say, perpetual war. And I've said before that this man is a Muslim, and everybody says I'm crazy. No, he's a Muslim. But the thing is, everything is set up for perpetual war, and it's all being done behind the scenes. You know, this is ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Detroit is crumbling. And this guy had the gall when he was running for election. This is how he works it. He went and before people in Detroit and in other areas around Detroit said, I will not let Detroit fail. Detroit will not fall down. Well, it's falling down, and you know what he said? He's not going to do anything about it. He will not do anything about what's going on in Detroit, Michigan. And when they went to file for bankruptcy, they were told no by a federal judge, bankruptcy court. I wonder who controls that judge. These are the problems that we have in this country. We have representatives, we have a president who does not care. He thinks that he's the king. His wife throws it in your face with every multi-million-dollar trip that she takes with the two little ones. And the American people love him. Well, America, you deserve what you get. If you're not going to stand up, you deserve what you get. And this is what you've got. You've got a king. You have an emperor, a dictator, whatever the hell you want to call him. But he's all yours, America. You better love him to death. Just hang in there and just love this guy for everything that he is, because apparently you don't care what he does. You don't care that he takes your tax dollars and gives them to an organization that, according to these people, were the ones that attacked us in the first place. They never attacked us. They never attacked us. But this is the globalist agenda. You take a guy like Barack Obama, who weaseled his way into this country, who weaseled his way into city council, state of Illinois senator from the state of Illinois to president of the United States. It's all been planned. He is your true Manchurian candidate. And you're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to pressure your congressmen or your senators. Believe me, if they think they're going to lose their cotton-picking job, this guy's done for. But nobody's pressuring them. Benghazi, what happened to Benghazi? As Hillary Clinton, what difference at this point does it make? Yeah, 4 Americans got killed. They killed our American ambassador. You want to know why she said that? Because there's a cover-up going on in Benghazi. And why? To control the people. They will kill every last one of you if they think it'll solidify their position. They want control of not just this country. They want control of the world. A handful of people controlling over 6 billion people on this planet. It's like I said before, 535 people in Washington, D.C., controlling the lives of over 300 million Americans, and nobody's doing anything about it. Nobody's getting on board and saying, hey, wait a minute here. Your Obamacare sucks. Why are you sticking me with that piece of garbage? It's falling apart. It's a train that's coming off the rails all by itself. And where are the people? Oh, well, I got me an Obama phone. I got me free health care. No, you don't. You got nothing. Nothing is free. You're going to pay for it. Wait till January when all the taxes kick in and you look at your paycheck and go, what the hell is this? I've been working 50 hours or 40 hours a week forever now, and my paycheck keeps going down, 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 and they just gave me a raise. Think about it. They're going to take it from you. They're going to take your money. They're going to take your livelihood away from you and your children. They don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, they just damn don't care. Why in the hell did we bail out the banks? With your tax dollars. Because they don't care. They wanted their buddies to have the money. Their God is money. Their belief is control everybody because we're special. I'm Barack Obama. I'm the leader of the free world. I'm the emperor. I'm the king. And get that bitch out of my sight. Go send her on vacation again. Because I don't want to deal with her. We have problems, ladies and gentlemen. We have very deep problems in this country. And they're driving a wedge between the average American people. They're driving a wedge between all of us so that they can have their control. And what's going on? We're letting them do it. We are letting them take control of our country and take control of our lives. That is where it's got to stop. We can no longer tolerate this. George Orwell, if you've ever seen the movie or read his book, you hear about the Ministry of Truth, which is exactly what I call the news media. Why? Because everything came down from the government. Past the government censors who would say, yes, you can report on this. No, you can't report on that. You can report on this, but you've got to report on it in this way or that way. Think about the movie Minority Report, a little bit more recent, where they had pre-crime, where they were arresting people before a crime was even committed without letting people run out their lives. All in the guise of being safe. Isn't that what you want to be? Safe? You don't care about the slavery that's involved with it. You want to be safe. Think about it over the next week, and I'll be back next Sunday night